I was sent this story time. This was so compelling, I actually read the whole thing through when a lot of the times I just kind of skim it until I'm reading the story on camera. As I am reading this story, see if you can see the red flags that she missed. See if you can see them. Okay, so she says, years ago, I had gotten a new job and moved into a very spacious, beautiful two-bedroom apartment when I met this guy whom I thought was cool. We hit it off very well, and best of all, we were into the same music scene, death metal and thrash metal. We went to the same shows and mostly listened to the same kind of bands. Outside of music, he was kind, generous, took me to my first five-star hotel, treated me to my favorite museum, and even paid extra for me to participate in the lab portion of the museum. We laughed, told funny stories and jokes. He finished my sentences, understood me, listened attentively, cooked and cleaned when he came over. Even though we were having a lot of fun, I noticed he was starting to not go home after dates with me. This happened more and more until I told him that he needed to go home. In short, he told me he liked me so much and wanted to spend as much time with me as he could. One night, he begged me to let him move in temporarily. Ugh, I thought. After some time, I relented and let him temporarily move in with me, even though I didn't like the arrangement at all because I liked having my own space. Remember, I said comment the red flags that you're seeing as I'm telling this story. She says, things were moving in a good direction, but then I noticed I'd stopped sleeping, started feeling nauseous, and my usual upbeat self had dwindled. At the time, I didn't know why, and since this was so long ago, I can't remember what exactly made my body respond this way. One day, he struck up a conversation that turned into this. Him, what would you do if you saw me talking to a woman at a bar? Me, nothing. Continues to eat popcorn while watching TV. Him, well, what if you saw us getting close? Me, nothing. Him, what if we kissed? Me, looks at him. You better hope you drove that night, 'cause I'd get in the car and leave you there. Him, you wouldn't fight for me? Me, confused as to where the F this was going. Ha ha, no. I fight for no man. If a woman is acting inappropriately, I expect you to handle it. I'm not handling him. Okay, so you don't love me. Me, sensing that he was manipulating me into a defensive position where I'd be stroking his ego, shrugs. I guess I don't then. LOL. Back to popcorn. A week or so later, he told me that his baby mama was complaining about needing a break from the kids. He asked me if it would be okay if he and I could take his kids to the park near their Baltimore home. He added that his baby mama would be with her boyfriend for the afternoon. I agreed. The day came that we were to take his kids to the park. I was actually excited to play with them. He drove us up to Baltimore to our house with me in the passenger seat. When we arrived at our house, we noticed she was gone. Immediately, I got uncomfortable. We both asked each other where she was. He parallel parked across the street from her house and went inside. I definitely felt uncomfortable at his leaving me alone with no keys to the car. After about 10 minutes, I got a sinking feeling and my adrenaline began to surge throughout my body. I thought to myself, why did he just walk into her house like he still lives there and when she's not at home? Why did she bitch to him about needing to take about taking the kids but isn't here for us to take them? Those thoughts and more were swarming through my head. I texted him asking him where she was, what he was doing and to come back out. I was relieved to see him exit the house and make his way back to the car where I was. I began asking questions because none of it made sense. He kept shrugging and told me he'd called and that she was on her way back. Still didn't seem right. About 10 minutes later, he said he was going back to call her. Why do you need to call her from inside her house? I thought as he closed the door to head back inside. He came back out about 5 minutes later and told me she was almost home. The sinking feeling came right back. At this point, I just wanted to go home. A couple of minutes later, I heard tires screeching like crazy off in the distance. It was alarming as this was a residential neighborhood with kids everywhere. People began to freeze and look towards the noise. A car came barreling around the corner, then headed straight for us, tires still screeching. My heart felt like it was beating in my throat, and I began to panic as I didn't know where what was going on. I think my subconscious knew the second we got to her house that she wasn't home. The car came. I'm sorry, made a mistake. I think my subconscious knew the second we got to her house and she wasn't home. The car came to a screeching halt beside my boyfriend's car. At the time, it seemed as though the car boxed us into the spot. I could see small children inside the car looking frightened. Out came a woman screaming, cursing, and gesturing wildly. Why this B word at my house? Oh, yeah, I'ma beat her butt. I was absolutely shocked and confused because I still didn't know what was going on. Come on, Clay. What are you doing? My boyfriend shouted. It was his baby's mom. She gave me a teasing smile as she nodded her head and sauntered over to my side of the car like we were in a boxing ring, too confident that she was going to TKO me. Lock the doors, I shouted at my boyfriend. He fumbled, but locked them right before she grabbed the handle. Mind you, when the windows were still open, she threw a very weak punch that barely made contact. Close the windows, shouted at him again. She tried to punch again, but the closing window pushed her arm upwards. She completely missed and briefly got her arm caught in the closing window. She did manage to spit on me before the windows went all the way up. I breathed a sigh of relief, but it wouldn't last long. I didn't know that the sunroof was open. Yep, she came through the sunroof, delivering weak punches and pulling my hair. Get us out of here, I shouted at my boyfriend. I can't. He started blocking her blows and eventually bit her finger in a way that made her stop. Let go, Clay, he calmly demanded. Part of her, part of her acrylic nail fell into the console as she loosened her grip. Let go, he repeated more sternly. She finally let go. Without moving, moving her car, miraculously was able to suddenly leave the spot we were in. This is how I believed it went at the time, but I think my mind was protecting me from the unbearable truth. He'd set me up that could have ended a lot worse for me. See, I discovered years later that my ex had gotten off on women fighting over him. So when I told him that I don't fight other women over men, he brought me to the fight unprepared. While hearing his baby mom shout threats at me and coming towards my car, he actually made no moves to secure me in the car, even after she hit me the first time. I was the one shouting at him to close the window right before he pretended to fumble with the buttons. He let her hit me repeatedly before taking any action. He yelled that he couldn't get out the parking spot, but that wasn't even close to being the truth. When he was finally satisfied with what he saw, he finally reached up and grabbed her to get her to stop. Then he very easily and quickly got out of the spot we were in. The added panic your body descends into when you're in fight or flight mode, but can do neither, is a feeling I never want to experience again. I believe his goal was twofold. A, revenge by proxy for bruising his fragile ego when I told him I wouldn't fight for him. B, he wanted two women to fight over him to make himself feel important. I refused, so he pushed me into, so to speak. He knew my presence would provoke her, and he could later throw his hands up and claim ignorance. After all, he wasn't the one fighting me, so all good, right? This not only put his kids in danger when their mom left them in the middle of the street with the door wide open, but it also forced the kids to watch their mother attack someone. It also put me at risk because I had a secret clearance at the time. This woman could have been packing heat as well, and I wouldn't have stood a chance, all because of his ego. I tried to take her to court, but it was futile. It became a she said, he said, she said. In retaliation, she filed a report against me, telling the story as though I'd been the villain, having my boyfriend drive me 60 miles to the streets of Baltimore just to beat her up for being his baby's mom. At the time, I believed his lies. I didn't know she was like that. I'm sorry for making a stupid mistake, taking you up there, etc. But after finding out he cheated multiple times, stolen my identity to empty out my accounts a couple of years later, I recounted the story, but differently. I suddenly realized that all the little details that I'd missed and detailed above about his inaction when I was being attacked. Oh, and that fancy 5-star hotel he took me to and all the awesome dates. Yeah, that was a huge sum of money he'd stolen from his baby's mom. The moral of the story is trust your gut. Things predators do and say may not always be so obvious and don't need to be. All of the sickness, sleepless nights, nausea, etc., were coming from my inner alarm system telling me to get the F away long before he'd done anything to me. Even if you convince yourself everything is all right, do you really want to put your body through all that stress? It's not worth it. And even if this guy had made a series of innocent mistakes at the time, do you want to be with a guy who puts you in harm's way? One question: have any of you heard of men setting their girlfriends up like this? So this man used his baby's mom's money to love bomb this woman. That is wild. That's how he was able to do all of that. And that's the reason why he was pressing so hard for her to let him stay with him, because he didn't really have a place to stay. He was living with his baby's mom, and then he burnt that bridge, and he probably lied to his baby's mom, like that woman, like the new girlfriend is the one that stole money from him. I mean, from him or from her. This is definitely a wild tale, but the red flags that I saw were the love bombing. And back in the day, we didn't really have language for what love bombing is, but now we do. If somebody is asking you all these questions and then all of a sudden he happens to be into the exact same things, he's whining you and dining you way too early, it just seems too good to be true. Wait it out just a little bit. See if he's going to ask if he could stay the night and won't leave. When she said that he just kept staying and staying and staying, that's a tactic that they do where they stay too long and just won't leave. And then all of a sudden, he's just living there. So keep in mind, these pests want to nest and rest and don't allow them to. And also don't allow them to get mail here, mail at your home. Just keep an eye out for love bombing, future faking, mirroring, and all of that. And join the conversation. Let me know, did you see any other red flags? Don't forget to like, comment.